People power growth, but recruiting and onboarding are expensive, exhausting, and absolutely overwhelming. I've been there, and it doesn't have to be this way. Welcome to Hire and Empower. I'm your host, Molly McGrath. Join me as we interview leaders who care about their teams and distill powerful lessons from them. This show is sponsored by H&E, helping organizations to find their best hire and empower them for success. Learn more at hiringandempowering.com. All right, team. I am excited for today's conversation. We are talking with Steve Fretzin of Be That Lawyer. I love that name, Steve. Thank you for being our guest.
Thanks. Good to be here.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your backstory and where you came up with that, your naming convention of Be That Lawyer.
Yeah. So my backstory is that I'm not a lawyer. People think I am because I play one on TV, but I'm not a lawyer, Molly. I got pulled into this space in 2008 with the recession. I primarily had worked with entrepreneurs all over Chicagoland, helping them grow their businesses. And when I started working with a lawyer, and then 2, and then 3, and then 5, and then 10, and it really took off. And with about a year and a half, I had about 85% of my total business was lawyers. In fact, here's a funny backstory too. My company at the time was called Sales Results Inc. How do you think lawyers felt about that name?
Yes. No.
Not good, right? The word
No
sales
way.
right there and the word
No.
results in there.
All
No
I
good.
hear is the bar association, malpractice.
Yeah. In just a real negative connotation. I mean, for entrepreneurs, it was, a beaming light, a beacon of light. And for lawyers, they were embarrassed to carry my materials because the name was Sales Results. So when I decided to push my chips in and work in legal, I changed my name to just Fretzin Inc. because essentially I'm the business. I don't have any staff, and I do all the coaching and training and everything myself. The Be That Lawyer came around. I have a good friend who's in very successful advertising buddy who's in the consumer packaged goods. And I said, hey, would you ever consider helping a small nobody like me, come up with a good tagline that would resonate with what I'm trying to accomplish? And so he gave me like 8 or 10 ideas, and they were all really good. But as soon as I saw Be That Lawyer, I was like, that's it. That's who I'm trying to create. The lawyer that everyone's talking about, that's buzzing about because he or she is making it rain. They're the ones bringing in the clients. They're the ones that are being hunted down by, the recruiters and everything else. So Be That Lawyer was created at that time. And I love it.
Oh, I love the name too. And, I would love if you could answer this question because I'm sure you hear this as well from attorneys all the time. Well, that'll work in other businesses. And because you do have the experience of working with other non-lawyers prior to 2008 law firms, and then working with attorneys, I hear all the time, well, that'll never work in a law firm. That'll never work for an attorney. That might work for other businesses, but it won't work for lawyers. Talk to us a little bit. Do you hear the same thing?
I don't really hear that very often. And
Good.
yeah, I mean, my background has been in sales. And so lawyers don't go to law school to sell legal services, right? That's not the motivation to go to law school. And so when they get out of law school, they go into the law firm space and no one's really teaching them business development. So we're transitioning from the word sales to business development, which somehow is more palatable for them. Or some lawyers call it marketing, which is even less true. But anyway, they realize that they're not really learning about how to get their own clients. They're not really doing that. So some figure it out on their own just through sheer force and effort. Some get lucky and land a friend or get referred by a friend that ends up being a multi-million-dollar deal. And then now they're a big shot at their firm. The rest of the humans actually have to go and try to build this book of business so that they have freedom and control over their futures. And so I'm in the weeds teaching them all of the soft skills, relationship building, questioning, qualifying, listening. And what I've turned it around is I'm not really teaching sales. What I'm actually teaching is sales-free selling, which is also the title of my first book. And it's really about those soft skills where you don't feel salesy and you don't feel like you're having to convince someone to do business with you, because that's really what most attorneys are afraid of, is coming across salesy or feeling like they have to try to convince a GC to come over to my firm versus the firm you're with. And the process that I teach is so soft and nurturing and just very conversational. Lawyers actually enjoy doing it. In fact, I got an email, 10 minutes before I hopped on this podcast with you, a client who normally wouldn't be sending out proactive emails to get meetings did. And he's like, oh, I already got 2 meetings that happened in 20 minutes. So it's just sometimes just doing it, and then it's having a good process and language. And again, that isn't taught at the law firm level.
Yeah. And tell us a little bit about your programs and what it is that you're passionate about. You talked a little bit about soft skills. You talk about relationship building. Tell us a little bit about your legal business development modality.
Yeah. So I'm really only doing 2 things. I've gone down so many different paths of different ways of approaching how I'm going to help attorneys take things to the next level. And I think that's an important adventure for me to have gone on, because in working with hundreds and hundreds of attorneys, I want to keep getting better and better and better as it relates to not only how I coach, but the actual program that they're getting and how it's going to ultimately change the way they do business development for the rest of their career. So I'm actually teaching them stuff that they can internalize and own, so they never need me again. So that's a bad business model to some degree. My sister's a therapist, by the way. No one ever leaves my sister, because if you've got a little bit of crazy in you, my sister will help you out, and she'll stay with you for the next 10 years of that crazy. So I really only do 2 things. I've got an NBA style coaching and training program that involves one-on-one coaching, where we plan, there's accountability, there's a real sense of partnership that happens in that coaching relationship. The other piece that's missing, and I'm one of the few that, if the only one that I know that actually does this, is I have my own internal training class where lawyers spend time with me every single week in a class with 10 to 15 other attorneys from around the country. And this is where they hone their skills. They learn the skills, they practice the skills, they get feedback on the skills. And again, that type of time and energy put into the skill building process. And that includes everything from how to network, how to use LinkedIn, how to develop strategic partnerships of referral partners, how to actually walk a buyer through a buying decision, client loyalty. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. But it's everything they need to know that that's going to help them get to the the finish line, that is having a portable book of business and making it sustainable. So it's a combination of that coaching and training and just being on retainer over about 8 months, that they learn all these things and have a chance to hone those skills. Okay. Yeah. And then just real quick, the other thing that I do is I run currently 5 peer advisory groups. So these are for the clients that I finish with that want to continue that journey with me. But instead of coaching and training, what they do is they float over into a peer advisory or mastermind group with other successful lawyers. Now they're getting information, insights, and everything from not only those lawyers, but the guest speakers that I bring in to address them. And I'm more of a facilitator than a coach and a trainer. Again, they don't need me anymore for that. But they love that I can facilitate a meeting, keep it moving, and they actually get a lot of value from those meetings in the peer advisory.
And I love that you have that class with attorneys. Tell me, because I hear all the time, well, what are other people doing? What's working for other people? So do you notice a difference between, because I've been in various different coaching groups, started out in 97 with attorneys, whether way back when it was in the room or in a, now that we're in this day and age, a Zoom room. Back then we'd do free conference and do teleconferences as well. Tell me about your experience. Here's my experience, is that there's a vast difference between the attorneys that fully, wholly show up and participate versus being a spectator. In my experience in the past, they'd show up, be in the room, observe everyone, not speak, not ask questions, not contribute. The class would end, and then my email would blow up with 14-point questions. And I'd love to hear your insight if your experience attorneys that are just spectators in the program, and the difference between those that are spectators and those that participate and fully play out.
Yeah, and I'll start off by saying that one of the things I did for many years is work with law firms. I would go into law firms and I would work with 8 to 15 of their attorneys, in some cases 20. And they would give me their problem children. They would give me their spectators. They'd give me their deer in the headlights, the people with, quote unquote, potential.
Mhm.
And out of the group of 10, maybe one or two would actually get results. The rest would just kind of not show up. Or if they did show up, it was just dead behind the eyes. When can I get back to my desk and bill hours? So I made a conscious decision a few number of years ago that I'm only going to work with the most highly motivated and ambitious attorneys that exist. And they have to come to me, and they have to, in some cases, pay out of their own pocket. So even the lawyers at big firms that I work with, I tell them, look, you need to be motivated, committed, coachable, and can you pay for this yourself? Because if the firm pays for it, maybe I won't get the same kind of skin in the game or commitment from you. I also have a contract that's ironclad where they have to initial a bunch of boxes that says they're going to show up, they're going to do the work, they're going to be held accountable, all these things that basically says you're not going to get results unless you do these things. I also interview them and move probably 75% of the lawyers that I talk to. I move them to a no. Either I move them to another coach, and I'm friends with all the lawyer coaches around the country. They're fantastic people. They're great friends. Or I just say, look, you're just not ready for me. You want to grow by 10%, or you think you've got it all figured out, and I've identified that you don't. Or I just don't know that they're really committed to do it. They're not going to put the time in because it takes time to learn. If you want to become a great golfer, you can't just snap your fingers and be a great golfer. If you want to become a great chef, you have to spend some time in the kitchen, right? You have to work with other chefs. That's just the way learning works. And so I really try to talk people out of working with me, maybe as much as I talk people, about working with me. And so what ends up happening is I end up with the cream of the crop, the best, smartest, nicest, most motivated attorneys. And we end up with this just fantastic class of interested, coachable people. And by the way, we're on a Zoom together. There's 14 people in the room, and I see their eyes going away from the screen. I see them checking their email, and I call on them. I go, Fred, that's not, and I see, I just know what you're doing, buddy. I call them out. Like, I do it in a nice way. I don't like burn anybody, but like, I let them know I'm watching you. I'm not just here talking. I'm here to engage, and I'm going to ask you questions, and you better be prepared with that answer. You're going to look stupid for a bunch of other attorneys. So, it's a little bit of some tough love there, but listen, learning comes at a cost, and part of that cost is paying attention.
Oh, that's a great
Sorry,
quote
sorry.
right there. No, sorry. That's fantastic. You keep using this term motivated attorneys. I would love from your perspective, because I would think anybody listening here, most humans believe they are motivated because of how much they hope and dream and wish for what it is that they want: more money, more time, more freedom, consistency, process, systematic, be freed up to be an entrepreneur, whatever it might be. I would love how, from your perspective, in your experience, how can you tell the difference? What's it between a truly motivated and not motivated human being, attorney, what business owner, what have you?
I mean, the easiest way, Molly, is to ask. So here's what I do. I do some discovery. I identify where the lawyer's gaps are. In some cases, it's like there's a pile of money sitting on the table, and they're just walking around it all day, and they just can't see it, or they just don't know how to get into where that value of developing clients and bringing in the business comes from. And so I identified that not only their gaps, but sometimes it leads to what their pain is, like what's keeping them up at night, and how that lack of conversion of activity to business is making them feel, and how disruptive it can be when you've got billable hours and you're out spinning your wheels doing things that aren't being productive. And then I ask, what's going to motivate you to change? What motivates you to build a book of business? And then I zip my lip and I listen, and I'm looking to hear things that are going to convince me that this is someone that's actually going to do the work, not just the work with me, but the work on the field of getting meetings, scheduling conferences, getting out there and doing the work that's going to actually bring in the business. Because learning for me is part of the job. And then the other part of it is executing on the field, and not just to get wins, but also to fail. And one of the things I love to do is talk to my clients about their failures or a failed attempt or something that didn't quite work right, and understand why it didn't go right. Was it something you did or didn't do? Or is it something about the client that we can identify? And then figure out where do we go from there, and how do we make it a learning experience versus a failing experience.
Mm, beautiful. As you were talking about that, I mean, identifying and talking about the failures up front and center and all the moving pieces of it. I don't know how many times you've heard from people, but this is the go-to answer. We've tried that and it didn't work. Right. And so there's a shutdown and a resistance to the suggestion or the modality that you're training on. So I love that you're identifying the moving pieces of it, because you may have tried that marketing initiative, or you may have hired a sales coach to support you. But let's talk about all the moving pieces of the strategy, the tool, the energy, the clients, the prospective clients you were sitting in front of, what was a marketing initiative to bring them to you? Because it's my experience, it's not just a blanket statement that it didn't work, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's always reasons why things happen or don't happen. And when we just are oblivious to it, or maybe we're so in it that we can't see it from the outside. And I'm actually a great example of that, because I was in sales for 10 years before I really met and worked with my first coach. And he was able to identify a bunch of things that I wasn't doing quite at the peak that I could have been. And I was just too close to it. You know, I just knew what I knew. And by the way, I was making great money and I was very successful. And there wasn't, like, in my mind, a problem. But when he evaluated me and realized that I was the hardest working guy he knew, but yet not working very intelligently. So there were things that I was doing where maybe I wasn't qualifying people well enough. I was chasing after people that were just big think about it's maybes and I'll get back to you type folks. And I was just so committed to locking up every piece of business I could get my hands on, that I was spinning my wheels and wasting time on stuff that was not non-productive. So I think that's the benefit. Even if somebody takes a 30-minute eval with me and they never hire me, I actually enjoy that process, and I enjoy giving them some feedback. And maybe I'll just give them my books, or I'll send them to another coach if they're not a fit. But I care about people in the legal, I care about people in general, but my commitment is in the legal industry. It's to make the legal industry better, to make the lawyers better, whether they work with me or not. My legacy will be that people will remember me long when I'm gone, because of the content I've produced and the people I've helped produce. And that may sound kind of kumbaya, but that's, everybody needs to think about how they're going to impact and leave their legacy. And this is going to be mine.
Oh, I love that. And that is mine as well. I just so appreciate that. Talk to us a little bit about why attorneys. What makes you so passionate about working with them, and what do you see makes them so unique, that they have opportunities sitting in front of them that they may not see?
Well, I'll give two specific answers to that. One is, my father is a retired attorney, and people that listen to my podcast and that have heard, my clients, they all, I've got lots of, Larry Fretzin stories. So I talk about my dad quite a bit, in particular about how he put me on the cross pretty much every day through high school and most of college. So, he and I never had much to talk about as it related to my career in sales and his career as a lawyer. And I think when I, started working with attorneys again back in 2008, it really gave me something to connect with him on, something that, that we could really talk about. And I think if he knew how to open up if he had a smartphone or knew how to use his computer, he'd probably listen to my podcast. But I got him to write the foreword on my third book. So I have that going for me. So that's one piece of it, is just, the Fretzin name and the Fretzin legacy. So that's one part of it. The other is, this is a noble profession that is evolving slowly and maybe more rapidly the last number of years with technology and Zoom and all this stuff. But it's a noble profession made up of good people that want to do well for their clients and advocate. And if they're missing something that's going to help them to be successful, like business development and the skills that I teach, then, what better group to work with? I mean, I don't know that I could work with doctors. I could work with accountants. I've worked in over 50 industries, Molly. So there's no shortage of the different groups that I've worked with and seen my processes and my methodologies help, but none so much as lawyers. Lawyers with my methodology can be unstoppable as long as, again, they have the right mindset about it.
Mm. And what do you see is different in attorneys in their business model that compared to other businesses, if anything?
I mean, there isn't that much difference. I mean, buyers are buyers, and GCs buy and CEOs buy, and mom and pop, they're going to buy an estate plan and all that type of thing. And people that get hurt, are going to buy a personal injury attorney. I would say the difference between lawyers and this has been one of the things I love about coaching lawyers, maybe more so than when I used to coach teams of salespeople, okay, and entrepreneurs. Many of these salespeople and entrepreneurs that I've worked with over the years have been told and taught and instructed so many different times and ways on how to do business development that it's almost like a whiteboard. If you can picture a whiteboard and it's got scribbles all over it, it's like hieroglyphics. None of it. It's all just a mess of dry erase, markers. With lawyers, it's like a clean slate. They don't know anything about it. Like, they've either tried it or they haven't, but either way, they really are very open to, yes, is there a process that shows me what to do and tells me what to say? And it's step one, do this, say that. Step two, do this, say that. And it's not cookie cutter to that degree, but it's customized to everybody. But the idea is that there's processes and methodologies that we can write up on the board that they've never seen before that really resonate with them. It's common sense stuff. My latest book, Business Development Isn't Rocket Science. It isn't rocket science, but it still takes some education and some instruction to learn anything, whether it's business development, being a chef, a cook, playing an instrument. It all takes instruction. It's not rocket science, but you need to learn. If you want to play a song on the guitar, you need to learn how to play the guitar.
Yeah. Yeah. What does Tony Robbins say? Knowledge is the sentence is not knowledge is power. Now knowledge is power with action. So to your point, you have a strategy. It isn't rocket science. It comes to a place of having that education and then the implementation, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's all about action. I mean, at the end of the day, we can plan and set goals and talk about big picture stuff, but it really is in the day-to-day thought and action that moves the needle and starts to, make real things happen. Like I was mentioning to you, the client that just, sent out a couple of emails, never really sent out proactive emails to clients to get meetings and talk about, referrals and additional business. And he did, and he got 2 meetings right away. And he just emailed me this wonderful email saying, Steve, I can't believe it. Why haven't I been doing this for years? Again, it is simple, but sometimes we need to have, again, a little push, a little bit of a friend in your corner, a little guy on your shoulder, saying, hey, maybe you want to do this or that. And it adds up. So, I appreciate the legal community for many reasons, but one of them is the open-mindedness to saying, look, if there's a better way of doing it, I'd be kind of silly not to at least, give it a shot, or at least to try it. If you're willing to put down the time, money, and energy to do it, then great.
Yeah. And I love it because attorneys, in my experience, are lifetime learners, and they have such a deep appreciation for a system and a process. And something like your legal business development model, pretty much it's tried, tested, proven. And in lawyers speak, they want some level of a guarantee or certainty, because to your point, often I hear from attorneys, why don't you ask that question on the listserv, or why don't you bring that question to the group? And their greatest fear is looking stupid, is what I hear from them. So I love that you have this process that is beautifully laid out, and by and large, pretty close to a guaranteed. It's been tried, tested, proven since 2008. Talk to us a little bit about what are the current challenges sitting here in 2022? What are the themes you're hearing from lawyers?
In some instances, it's that things are so good, things are
Yeah.
so busy that they don't have time to do business development, in which case, we've got a couple things we got to work on, which is, how are we mastering our time? How are we leveraging delegation? How are we bringing in outside resources and automations to help us accomplish our goals? I had a conversation with a lawyer who just started with me like a month ago. And we just started getting into the planning, and he was just about to start getting out and start getting active. And he got crushed with phone calls and business and all kinds of great stuff. And he said, Steve, your program's working. And he was joking because we hadn't done much yet together. So he's kind of giving me a little bit of a rub, a little bit of a goof. But he missed a class. And I said, Ryan, man, you can't miss classes. This is like mandatory, right? And he goes, but I'm so busy, so busy. I said, you know what? Let's do 30 minutes, not about business development. Let's do 30 minutes about what's actually happening in your day and your week right now. And sure enough, I found all kinds of stuff that he should not be doing himself. He was actually learning on the fly a different area of law to help resolve some real estate issues that someone had in an estate plan. And I was like, dude, you can't do that. And you can't learn and handle those real estate matters with the work that you're trying to do that you enjoy. So we immediately brought, I said, you need to meet this other lawyer friend of mine that's a client, and let him handle it for you. Don't worry about the money. It's not a money grab. You're just trying, you've got a heart condition, my friend, you better take it easy. And so we came up with like 4 or 5 actionable things that he needs to do and is doing now to try to get his ducks in a row, to get organized, to handle the work. And then once that resolves, now a week later, he can come back to class, come back to business development and keep growing, because he'll have the infrastructure and the organization and the automation to get things done in a way that doesn't totally, handcuff him.
Yeah. And I love that delegation and just doing that, shining the flashlight and see where you're spending your time and what percentage of it is really focusing on. One of my favorite books is The One Thing, focusing on your peak performance activities and getting rid of the rest. And I think so often attorneys are just so worried about giving up the money or giving up the opportunity. And one of my first coaches that I constantly anchor to this, it's not what you say yes to, it's what you say no to.
Yeah, it really is. And that's the thing, people say yes and they're opportunistic, and I totally get it. I'm an entrepreneur through and through. I've run 5 businesses in the last 20 years. So, and I try new things all the time, and they don't all work out. And so what I try to do is mitigate my time, mitigate my losses. And I try to say no to meetings that are unproductive or I believe to be unproductive. I say no to new opportunities that aren't aligned with my one thing or my core focus and where I'm taking my business. So when I tell you at the beginning of our talk today that I only do 2 things, that's not the me of yesteryear. That's the me of now. That had to evolve. I had to figure out that the 2 things I'm providing are the 2 best uses of my time. And they're the things that are getting my clients the best results. There are lawyers that want to hire me on an hourly basis, or they want 10 hours of coaching and they want to pay a flat fee. I can't send them to my coaching friends fast enough because they're not for me. That's not how I run. That's not how I roll. And I know that it's not going to get them the results that they're looking for. So I'd rather not participate and leave the money than have a failure or something that isn't productive for me.
Oh my goodness. Bravo for that, because I know you are an entrepreneur to the bone. And I would just love your experience of that you say no to, and you have an unwavering, unflappable stand to your 2 things and to your commitment, to your vision, to your legacy. What's your experience when you say no and refer it out? And it's not, no, I'm not going to help you, but let me find you the place and let me send you somewhere that can give you the service and the help that you need. What typically shows up in your world when you really are clear about saying no? I would assert that you are seeing more and more and more of service to your 2 things.
Yeah. I mean, it's the best thing you can do for someone is the right thing to do for someone. So when I tell someone no, or this may not be I don't say it. I'm very good about the way I say things.
Sure.
Language is so important. And so I would say, look, we agreed at the very start of our meeting, Bob, that this is all about us being a fit for each other, and in identifying what your needs are and what you're looking for and what your budget is. I'm just not a good fit. The good news is I have 3 different coaches from around the country that I know are stellar. I know them personally. I know the people they've worked with. They're great. And I'd like to give you some people to talk to. And I think you'll be very happy with them. Now, either they fight back and they want to, they see that as I'm pawning them off and they want to fight to get me back, but that doesn't typically work out because again, I'm not the cheapest guy on the block and my program is very intensive. The other side of it is they're incredibly grateful that I was so kind and thoughtful to move them in a direction that's going to be better suited for them. And then, of course, I'm making everyone happy, me happy because I'm doing them a solid. They're happy because they're going to meet some great coaches. And the coaches are happy because they're getting referrals from a guy who's formerly potentially a competitor. They may have seen me that way at some point, and I'm not. There are people that are going to be better for me, and there are people that are going to be better for them. And I want people to go to the right place.
Great. If you could pick a few things that, that you would give to our listeners today as drive-by coaching or nuggets of what you see is working in 2022 and what they can do to leverage and up-level their business, be it a strategy, a mindset, what have you, what would you say to our listeners today?
One of the fundamentals of becoming great at something is what I call the 3 Ps. And this is if you're just listening to this and you just think about what I'm saying as I say it, you'll realize I'm right. Because it's not, I'm just stealing from other people and borrowing from other people and smashing together other, ideas into my own. But if you want to be successful in anything, the first P is plan. You've got to have a plan of how you're going to approach whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. If you're looking to become, again, a great athlete or a great musician or whatever, having a plan that kind of lays out the roadmap, the ways, if you will, right? The Google Maps, the thing that's going to not only get you from A to B, but also if you make a wrong turn, get you back on track. So the plans and tracking can do that. And I help clients with that. The second P is process. Anything you want to become terrific at doing, have a process. So if I walk into a courtroom, Molly, and I don't know anything about the law other than what I've seen on My Cousin Vinny and a couple of Law and Orders, right? I'm going to walk in, I'm going to say, hey, judge, these 2 Utes or whatever. And it's not going to go so well generally, right? And I'm going to make a lot of mistakes and I don't really know the law and all that. So why are we doing that with business development? If I wanted to put together the best batch of chili you've ever tasted, okay, if you eat meat or just bean chili, whatever, veggie chili, the point is that you need to have a recipe. You need to know when you put things in and what ingredients and how much and all that. And with business development, no one has it. No one has that recipe. I have the recipe, but lawyers generally don't have the recipe. So if you have a plan as the first P, you have a process to follow for just about anything you want to accomplish in business development. That's the second P. The third P is my favorite, and that's performance improvement. So you can have a process, but what happens when you try the process and it doesn't work out quite the way you want it to, or it's not working to get you the results you're looking for? Well, then let's look at it. Let's make that improvement. Let's improve the process. Let's make it work for you, customize it for you and what you're doing. And then it gets better and better and better. So if you have a plan, you have a process, and you have a way of improving your performance over time, those 3 Ps are the key to success. And that's for a litigator in the courtroom that's have 10 years of experience of improvements is going to be better than the first-year attorney. That's just a fact. So those are really critical elements to a good coach and a good program, is that you have those 3 elements in the mix.
And listeners, do not shut down if you think, oh, I already have a plan, already have process, already have performance review. Take Steve's coaching here today and take the power of the pause to add another P in there and really sit down and take stock and get really honest with yourself. Can you, from the top of your head to the bottom of your toes, know in your bones, in your blood, what your plan is, what your process is, what your performance review? And if not, then it's time for you to really take another look at it and recommit to it. Because chances are, if you can, so often I talk to people, I'm like, all right, talk to me a little bit about your plan. And they're like, oh, hang on, let me go get my binder. Let me open it up and see what it is. And it's not in their soul. It's not in their bones, at least 80% of it, of here's where I am, here's where I'm going, here's how I'm getting here. And this is what I'm doing to consistently reassess and see what's working, what's not working. If it's not in your bones, it's not in your blood, you can't just speak it like your own name, then chances are there might be, from my experience, a lack of clarity and or commitment to it.
Yeah. And I would add that a good plan is something that includes a lot of actionable things. I think I look at a lot of law firm, quote unquote, law firm plans, right? Because the law firm wants you to put together, how are you going to spend the budget? How are you going to spend your time? What's your business development going to be this year? And it's a list of associations. It's a list of names. It's a list of clients. It's a list of this, a list of that. What's your brand? What does your brand mean? And the lawyers, they're just filling in the boxes. It's not something that they're going to ever look at again. Right. Once they turn it into the firm. The plan I needs to be front and center, up on the desktop, checking boxes, checking things off. It correlates to a tracking system that I'd help the individual create, so they can track every day and see where things are working, see where they're not, move on to the next day, the next week. Over a month's time, I've got 20 working days of content. It's very easy to see, A, do you have enough activity to warrant the kind of results you're looking for, kinds of goals you're looking to hit? And B, how are you doing on conversions? If you're meeting 10 clients and your goal, one of your goals was to get referrals out of them, and you have 10 and you're 0 out of 10, you've got to break down and process, right? There's something that you're not doing or saying, or an approach that you don't have that's not, or just the fear of making the ask that's not happening. And so now you're just a professional meter. You're just meeting people for meeting's sake. And yeah, good things happen sometimes when you meet, but it could be a lot more.
I'm a professional meter. I love that. So in closing, tell us what it means for you to be that lawyer, and how do you know if you are that lawyer?
Well, you said something about having it in your bones. And my goal is, when I have a lawyer that is highly committed and motivated in my program, is to get that lawyer to, again, internalize how he or she is going to do business development for the rest of his or her career. And so this is the best part about a class, the people that are in the class, they're in it for 6 months. And I've got people starting in at a given time. The people that have been in it 4 or 5 months, and I hear them start teaching the younger people in the class what they've learned, something that I say, and what would I say? And then they chime in like they're me. Or when they start taking what they've learned from me to train an associate or teach someone else, that's when I know we're locked and loaded. And by the way, business starts coming in, or activity is so high that it's just everything is bubbling up to the surface. You're not going to build, millions of dollars necessarily in hiring me and working with me for 6 or 8 months. But if we can get some movement in the right direction, bring in some business and set you up for the next year, 2, 3, 5, 10, that's what it's really all about. And so my goal, again, is to help attorneys internalize it, have it, own it, so they don't need me again. And that's a really beautiful thing, because they don't have to keep paying me, forever to keep coaching them. Do what you do. And if you want to keep going, you can enter a peer advisory and get coached by your peers, or you can just go out on your own and keep killing it. And that's a great feeling. And I love keeping in touch with my clients and stay where we all become fast friends. When you share something, wonderful, like coaching, and this from hiring coaches, like, you become pretty close. It's like a therapist. It's like great to talk to that person because they really know you, and they've worked to help accomplish something. And I mean, my high school counselor changed my life in going from being a C student, C's to B's and A's. And I got into college because of him. And, I wasn't shy about finding him years later and walking up to him and saying, "Thank you, Dr. Hine. Without you, I wouldn't have gone to college." So, we need to, keep in touch and stay friends with the people that we work with.
So as you were talking, I have a 20-year-old and a 16-year-old, and it's like that proud parent moment when you're in the kitchen and you hear them talking to their friends and using language that you taught them and just their perspective. That's what I envision from your clients, how you know when you be that lawyer. It's equivalent, what I'm hearing it, to that proud parent moment where there's clarity, they're confident in what's coming out their mouth. It's in their bones. They're able to pay it forward and teach their peers and hand it to their peers. And you're just there beaming from ear to ear because
Yeah.
they own it. They
Yeah.
own it, and they're in it. It means their way. It's there. It's very clear on what being that lawyer is for them, with the plan, with the 3 Ps, with all of that, and the mindset. And they're very clear on what success means to them, because I would assume you got 6 lawyers in that group. Success has a different definition for each one of them, hopefully.
Yeah. And I try to not only identify their goals as it relates to, clients or monetary goals, but, what does that mean to them, and how are they going to, how is it going to impact their life, their family, their ability to travel, whatever they enjoy? Because part of being that lawyer is having balance, and it's having that lifestyle. That lifestyle might be working all the time. If that's what you love, then fine, do that. But for other people like me, I live a great lifestyle in the sense of I split my time between my working day, which I get up and love to do every day, and then spending time with my wife and fishing with my son and playing sports, and just having this well-rounded thing where it's not all about the slave to the money, or slave to the hour, the billable hour. Balance is, that's about what life's all about.
Absolutely. So tell our listeners, Steve, how they can get connected with you and use you as a resource, or your books and podcasts.
Yeah. So we've got Be That Lawyer podcast, which is on all the major platforms. We've got 4 books now on Amazon. My most recent one, Legal Business Development, became an international bestseller in Japan, Australia, Canada, and the US.
Congrats.
Thanks. That book is hot to trot. It's selling like hotcakes right now on Amazon. So pick up a copy if you're interested in just kind of hearing 50 chapters of me going on about all the tips and ideas that I try to share.
50 chapters, 50?
50. It's actually 51 or 52, I think. But each chapter has at least 2 to 5 takeaways, things that are actionable. Like, I don't talk in my books about philosophy and theory and 20,000-foot views. I get into the weeds. You want to talk to a client about how that client can refer you other GCs and CEOs and other people. I give you the language. I give you the steps. I'm trying to help you actually accomplish something, and steal from it what you can, use what you can. And then obviously my website, fretzin.com, FRETZIN.com. And there's video testimonials. There's all kinds of information, lots of video content, a blog, et cetera. So no shortage of content, Molly, from my side.
No, not at all. You Google search you and your podcast just shows up. Bar associations that I've seen, Colorado Bar Association, that you've been doing amazing presentations for, and your commitment to the legal space is loud and clear. So thank you for continuing to be a legal leader, leading leaders.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me on the show and allowing me to have a platform to talk to lawyers and share what I do. And more importantly, just share, what are some secrets to success? Because I think there's lawyers that are realizing, whether it's the pandemic, the war, all the terrible things that are going on, the great resignation, that you got one shot at this thing and you might want to make the best of it.
Yeah. And to your point, like, it is time for law firms. I mean, they're just crushing it. As everyone I speak to, very rarely am I talking to people that are, just down and out and destitute, but their struggles are different. When you're leveraging, when you're optimizing, when you're elevating, your struggles are different, which is great because it tells you you're on a path of growth.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, take advantage of the current environment and milk it, but know that it's not necessarily going to last forever. Things are going to normalize. And so, the best time to do business development and to get your ducks in a row is when things are good. It's not when things are bad.
Oh.
And that's like marketing 101, Molly. I mean, you don't market when things are bad. You market when things are good.
Yes. Well said. Yeah. All right. That's a wrap, listeners. Until next time, we've reached the end of another impactful conversation on the Hire and Empower podcast. Whether this was your first episode or you're a longtime listener, I know you can tell I have passion for people. Whether you're a business owner, employee, executive, or hiring manager, I understand the situation you're in. Hiring, onboarding, and leadership is expensive, exhausting, overwhelming, and if that's not enough, it's also time-consuming. My friends, it doesn't have to be this way. There is a team at H&E that has your back. For over 25 years, they've transformed over 4,000 law firms into efficient, effective, profitable assets for their business and made it fun to come to work again. Check out our Smart Hire solution, our employee leadership program, and the 66-day law firm turnaround at hiringandempowering.com.